You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristodoulou.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to more of the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Haristodoulou, and today, continuing on with our On the Clock draft preview series, I am focusing on none other than the Cincinnati Bengals, the AFC representatives of this year's past Super Bowl. So, my Bengals fans, make sure, as always, comment down below, who do you want to see the Bengals go after in this year's draft? Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and check out some of the other draft previews I'm doing. I'm also covering the USFL, and we'll be doing a boatload of other things as we roll through the draft and post-draft, so make sure you stick around. Now, the Bengals, what does this team need? Because you want to talk about an overachieving unit that surprised everyone getting as far as they did last year, myself included. I was so impressed with what the Bengals were able to do, considering, one, Joe Burrow was coming back from an ACL injury, and, there was a lot of doubt about the offensive line play, and while it wasn't the best, they were still able to do so much offensively despite that fact. And then the defense. There were some spurts here and there where the defense did not look good, but then there was also even more spurts where the defense looked really, really good, especially running through the playoffs there against the best competition they could go up against. A really impressive team, and realistically speaking, there's only a few things here or there that are like maybe a glare or two that really stick out where the Bengals need to focus on. I know people are still pounding the table to take one more piece for the offensive line. Some people are saying to, find somebody to replace free agent loss in Larry Ogunjobi. There's some secondary things that might need addressing as well, especially with concern about Jesse Bates not having signed a long-term extension yet. But the way I see it, the Bengals are in a really good position to draft best player available, in all honesty, if they really wanted to. I mean, you have so much that you can be excited about, and for positions that I'm looking at, yeah, sure, an offensive lineman, maybe a D lineman if you want to, but I mean, some of the guys that you had coming in impressed when Larry Ogunjobi went down. Tight end is definitely something I'd be looking at here. I mean, so not a ton of places. And again, secondary, you could argue maybe a safety, even though Von Bell wasn't no slouch, but, is he really the guy you want paired up with Jesse Bates long term? So for day 3, to start things off, I'm looking at the tight end position. I would like to see the Bengals do something about replacing CJ Uzomah. And I have targeted, because it sounds like he's going to be a late day 2, early day 3 guy. So I'm thinking you're probably spending your 4th round selection here, maybe even a little bit more, depending on where people think he might fall and other tight ends being taken before and how many have been taken before him. I would like to see the Bengals go after Iowa State tight end Charlie Kolar. And the reason I say this is, 1, pretty solid blocker. 2, he has excellent hands, 2 drops only in 2021. The dude is a monster at 6'6", 255 pounds, and he has excellent contested catch radius and ball skills. When I look at Charlie Kolar, and I think of what they got out of CJ Uzomah last year in Cincy, it's like a very, I don't want to say one-to-one replacement, but Kolar is not necessarily the most explosive athlete in the world by any means at all, and he's not a guy that's going to get a ton running after the catch, and you could argue Uzomah definitely did get that done here and there, but Uzomah definitely benefited from the fact that he had someone like Joe Burrow throwing him the football and leading him into some really good throws. I think bringing in someone like Charlie Kolar, who maybe he doesn't even break out in his first year because it may take him some time to get acclimated to the league, ends up in the long run being a legitimate target in that tight end spot. I would really like to see the Bengals go after him and develop him into a true full-fledged receiving tight end. And again, pretty solid blocker. He does struggle with his leverage use, which is like a technique thing that he's going to have to work on. But overall, his skills, again, one of the best tight ends in this draft in terms of just straight up ball skills and going up and getting the football in those contested catch situations. He's not going to wow you with his athleticism. Excellent hands, though. Solid, guy to work on the inside, the seam routes, the inside. This is someone that I think would fit in really, really well, whether it's a year down the road or potentially surprising everyone, and maybe he's an instant impact guy. But I know for a fact that Joe Burrow would love to have a monster tight end security blanket to throw to like he did when he had CJ Uzomah. Now, moving into day number 2, we're going to stick with the offensive side of the football here, and I don't think I can really ignore it just because it seems like everyone else is saying it, so I'm going to slightly jump on the bandwagon here, but I'm not going to use a first-round selection on it. I'm going to go day 2, whether it's the second or third round, because it sounds like he could end up being there's potential he ends up being like a later day 2. He might even fall as far as day 3, but it sounds like he's like late day 2. Offensive tackle Zach Tom out of Wake Forest. This is someone who has played center. He has played left tackle. He's projected, however, to potentially be a guard in the league just based off of his intangibles and frame and where some of his limitations lie. So someone that realistically you could plop in just about anywhere on the offensive line. So versatility, when I'm talking offensive linemen in these draft previews, bang, checkbox marked. I always look at that. Like, how many positions has this offensive lineman played, and in how many situations can he help you out should, he ends up being your left guard, but, your center goes down for a game or something like that. I always look at that when I'm picking offensive linemen in the draft, and Zach Tom checks that box. He's praised for being a very fluid player, and he mirrors defenders really, really well. And if you did not know, the reason I'm bringing this guy up is because obviously pass protection needed helping going into this offseason for the Bengals. They did a lot of addressing with that during the offseason. But Zach Tom, the highest graded pass blocker by PFF this past season in the entire FBS with a 92.1 grade. He's not as good in the run game as he is in the pass, but this is somebody who knows how to pass block. And again, he looked better playing left tackle than he did when he was playing center. So this is someone that, experience on the left end of the offensive line, experience in the middle, calling the shots. He's praised for his brains, but it sounds like he needs to move to guard maybe. If that's the case, whether you opt to continue on with Jackson Carman or not at the left guard spot, Zach Tom is somebody you can end up plugging in if things start going south and don't start working out there. Otherwise, he ends up being a really good depth piece, and you can never have too many good offensive linemen. There are, again, concerns about him, as there are with every player. And honestly, not anything too crazy. Play strength was something that came up a lot, but it was his level of aggression. A lot of people seem to not think that that's there, and that's something that he needs to find. But, I mean, if you're worried about play strength, he's a young guy, 23 years old. That's something you can obviously work on in the weight room over the years. And as he turns into a grown man, starts getting that grown man strength in on him. And aggressiveness, that's something you can't really teach. I feel like you either have it or you don't. You're either, like a badass MFer or something like that. But the way I see it, he's going to be around some dudes, some really good offensive linemen. Maybe they can try to pull that out of him. But if those are two of the main concerns for a player, why not take a flyer on him in day 2? See if you can draft him in the 3rd round. Excellent depth piece, in my opinion. And then for round number 1, pick number 31, I'm really curious where the Bengals are going to go here, because when I'm looking through mock drafts, it's all over the board. I've seen them go after a defensive back. I've seen them taking offensive linemen. I have seen them taking running back. And whoever the hell thinks the Bengals are taking a running back, first of all, Cincinnati should not be taking a running back, and I will flat out say that right now. And anyone that thinks they should, do we not know who Joe Mixon is? I'm just confused here as to why, because is Joe Mixon not the running back of the Cincinnati Bengals? I just don't know. So with that in mind, DBs, offensive linemen, I've seen a lot of different things. It doesn't seem like anyone's really 100% certain where they're going to go. I'm focusing on the defensive side of the ball because, again, I addressed tight end, which is not something you would go in the first round of this year's draft with, but I've addressed tight end. I've addressed offensive line, which is one of the more popular ways that they end up going. I'm looking at the secondary, and I was really leaning towards corner here, but I think I would like to go after a safety. I brought up Von Bell really early in this video, and I'm going to bring him up again. While he is not by any means a terrible safety, he is no slouch. Is he really the guy to, anchor the defense opposite of Jesse Bates on the opposite side? I don't know. But what I do know is that Lewis Cine out of Georgia is one hell of a tackler. 11 misses on 159 career attempts. That is unbelievable. He's someone you can play deep. He's someone you can play in the box. He's praised for his elite level awareness, and he understands what offenses are trying to do when it comes to pre-play and that initial jump off the ball. Listen, this is probably not the most pressing need for Cincinnati, but helping the back end out and also bringing in a guy that you can kind of move around and play more than just like a deep safety role, Lewis Cine would be a pretty solid addition for this defense. And whether he ends up being an excellent standout guy or maybe just someone who can do all the dirty work while Jesse Bates is being your playmaker, having a really good tandem at safety does pay dividends to an extent. If you look at a team like Buffalo, they have arguably one of the best secondaries, best safety pairs in the NFL right now. And they had the #1 defense last year. They didn't necessarily have the world's greatest pass rush, but that pair of safeties over there is between Hyde and Poyer, like, talk about a solid duo and guys that can just shut things down in the back end for you when you need it most. That's kind of the idea I'm building around here. I know Eli Apple got a lot of flack this past season for talking too much, and I think if he was to pipe down a little bit, some of that would go away. Eli Apple is not a terrible corner by any means. He is not a #1, and on his best days, he's a #2. He needs to go into a more situational role where he's not having, the #1 wide receiver, Cooper Kupp, torching him for the touchdown, the final touchdown and game-winning drive of the Super Bowl, Like, that's a mistake, yes. But you bring in Lewis Cine, he can play around. Your secondary, I'm pretty okay with what the Bengals have in their secondary, if I'm being quite honest with you. And also bringing in Lewis Cine, who can play inside the box, this opens things up for their linebacking group as well, because a lot of people keep telling me that this linebacking group is great and everything, and I don't want to say that they're not, but I don't know if they're as good as people want to believe they are. There's definitely a flaw or two here and there throughout the entire group that they have there, and that also includes Logan Wilson. But I will say, Lewis Cine, maybe not the most pressing need, but I addressed O-line in the second day. I like tight end for day 3 picks. And I would like to see them do something about the secondary. And maybe Cine's not the guy they go after, but it is somebody I would be interested in seeing them take. So I'd love to know, you Bengals fans, what you think about this in the comment section down below. Again, who would you like to see the Bengals go after in this year's draft? But that is it for me. I appreciate you guys for watching. I will catch you all in the next video. Have a good one.